Welcome to Sharing Sox on Southside Sox, the first edition after the 2021 National Baseball Hall of Fame vote that just occurred on Tuesday. We're recording this on Wednesday. I'm Leigh Allan, the duty geezer at Southside Sox, and with me our West Coast correspondent, my son Will. I sit amongst the cold and snow. He sits amongst the warmth of Los Angeles. But we both sit, I think, pretty happy with the fact that Mark Buehrle, whose shirt I am not wearing because it's short sleeve and it's too damn cold here, but that Mark Buehrle got 11% of the vote in his first shot at Hall of Famer. Doesn't mean he's going into the Hall of Fame by any means, or that he'll even come close, at least in the regular voting. But I think it's nice. I think it's a good thing. He's tops in his class.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think Buehrle's going to end up in the Hall of Fame, but it was a great start. And just nice to see that kind of support, even from 11% on his first attempt. My guess would be plateaus around the 25-30% mark at some point. But it's still, a good showing. I should also point out that the Southside Sox, we do our own Hall of Fame voting, and we also did not select anyone this year. So this was just a bum year, both in mock and in the real deal. Unfortunately, speaking of bums, I would like to mock the bum that is Curt Schilling, who did not make it. He came the closest. What do you have, 71%?
70 point something, yeah.
Yeah, 16 votes shy, from what I read. And then has elected to take himself off the ballot next year, even though no one asked. No one asked at all. It seems to be that Curt Schilling tends to only offer his thoughts on things when nobody asks. But he solidified himself as a whiny piece of crap. And I think, despite how they voted before we knew he liked treason, now you add in the treason, but more importantly, this little act of childish behavior. I think Curt Schilling is not going to be in the Hall of Fame at any point, whether it's now or with the veterans vote. Because, and
what a crying shame. And speaking of whiny and so forth and so on, the adjectives you used, as Brett Valentini pointed out in his column about the Hall of Fame voting, Nick Swisher got 0.
Nick Swisher actually exactly matched what I expected. Kind of what I've always expected of Nick Swisher. Nick Swisher is.
I think that was his batting average with the Sox too. Actually,
it wasn't that high. I think his batting average was actually below 0. No, I am thrilled to see that he has got the traction he deserves. That's just a technical thing to even have him on the ballot. That one's just kind of goofy. It'll be really interesting to see what happens next year with Bonds and Clemens. I don't anticipate either of them making it in, since they stayed still in their voting this year. And then Curt Schilling's little pouty thing, we'll see what kind of effect that has. But I actually don't know who's even going to get in next year. It's not looking good.
Yeah, it could be. Well, of course, next year, new people will be coming along to get in on the crowd. Meanwhile, for things happening this year or this season, we don't know when it's going to start really now, because the Cactus League has asked that spring training be pushed back a couple of weeks.
Right.
The Players Association says the Cactus League is just a tool of Major League Baseball. That indicated, yeah, that's true. And that's just the owners trying to pay the players less. I think less during a period where they know they're not going to have anybody in the stands, or outside of maybe Florida and Texas, they're not going to have anybody in the stands because those people don't have governments. And it could go that they start 2 weeks late and shorten it up a little bit. I think that'll only happen if the owners agree to pay the players their full salary, which they won't do if they, it's all the arguments that go back and forth, and the owners trying to screw the players as best they can, and crying poor and on their multi-billion-dollar properties, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing that goes along with some of that is, as it looks right now, but why they can't make a final decision before spring training starts, I don't know. No DH in the National League. Something of importance not only in ball games, but to the life and times of Nelson Cruz, among others, among several others, as a matter of fact, probably Cruz more than anybody.
That was kind of one of the more bizarre news things to happen in baseball, to find out that they still have not really made a decision on the DH, and it's looking like it might not happen for the National League, which would be so strange.
Yeah.
Seeing pitchers bat again is pointless.
Again, negotiations. Well, of course, I'm an old guy and I'm a pre-DH guy. I'm not a pro-DH, but that's an age thing. That's just a generational difference that's going to exist forever or until we all die off. But that again, that's a bargaining thing, because the owners say, well, we give you the DH in the National League, which is something the players would like. And in an exchange, we want all these extra playoff games. We're going to make a joke of the regular season again, just like we did in 2020. And we'll have all these extra playoff games. We'll share a little bit of the playoff money with you, but we're very, very nice. We'll give you just a little bit. We'll take the rest.
Yeah.
That's a big TV contract. So that's an internal argument. We're building up to, of course, the contract is up at the end of this season. It's going to be a long winter next winter.
It's going to be a really long winter, and hopefully we don't end up in another strike scenario, but I could easily see that happening, because they just are butting heads at every turn on this stuff. And a lot of guys, their futures are really up in the air, kind of, with this lack of DH decision. You've got Ozuna is not signed, Nelson Cruz who isn't signed. And these guys, are looking at potentially half the teams that would have been interested being able to bid on them to be a DH. And I don't really know what's going to happen with them, but I would be fuming mad if I was Nelson Cruz and Marcell Ozuna, sitting around wondering, if you're going to play for someone next year. I mean, obviously they are, but your money is going to drop by the day if this doesn't work out.
If it's not anything else, sure, you got twice as many suitors and those teams do not have a DH yet.
Exactly.
They have somebody who filled in this past season, but they don't have a real DH. They haven't been setting up their teams that way. So that's a bigger market really for Cruz and Ozuna. Of course, Ozuna comes from a team that could use a DH if they're going to have one. If they could go back to Atlanta. Meanwhile, while we had some technical problems, so we're actually recording this for, I don't know, the third or fourth time today. In between those times, there was one move that MLB Trade Rumors came up with. John Lester.
Oh.
Unfortunately, is not going to be pitching in the American League Central. I was really, really hoping he'd go to an American League Central team, because then our guys could hit about 850 off him. He's going to Washington.
Oh, okay. Lester is one of those guys where I've always just been surprised that he's somehow still kind of good every year.
I know, and he hangs in there a year.
I think he's a little younger than you, but not by much.
No.
And, if he goes there and pitches, even decently, that rotation obviously is pretty insane to begin with Strasburg and Scherzer and Corbin. So it'll be interesting to see where Lester falls in, but I'm glad he's not joining us.
One of the other sites, and I don't remember the name of it, and I won't steal all the numbers or anything because I don't remember those either, but did a study of the projections. They mashed the projections, all the available projections together for the White Sox starting pitchers, and they weren't good. The one for, Giolito, I think one projection is Giolito is the best pitcher in the American League. you put them all together, and his ERA was over 4. There wasn't an ERA under 4 in the crowd. And then you got the number 4 pitcher. They had Cease, which I hope is like the number 9. But they have like a 4.9. Everybody was striking out. Almost everybody that came to the plate, but apparently those that didn't strike out, this is of course modern baseball,
Yeah,
were hitting homers because they're striking out like 11 guys per 9 and with an ERA of 4.85. And not walking me until you got the season.
I mean, that absolutely could be what happens. I mean, we could be sitting with 5 starters with ERAs around 4.
But they're still pitching to the American League Central, which is wonderful.
Yeah, and it's
not like they're facing major leaguers most of the time.
Well, and even better, it means our batters are facing the American League Central.
Yeah.
So you can have a starting ERA average around 4 if you're putting up 6 a game. I mean, that's how you win. You score more than the other guys. So I'm not as concerned about a prediction that says those ERAs are going to be there. It's more important to me that we're going to have an explosive offense. And I personally think that, Giolito's not going to have an ERA around 4. I think Keuchel will probably come in a little under that. I think it is probably a comfortable spot for Lance Lynn, potentially a spot for Kopech, and potentially a spot for Cease. And honestly, if we get Lynn, Cease, and Kopech all throwing at 4, and we get Giolito throwing at 3 and Keuchel throwing at 3, we're going to be looking at a winning season.
Yeah, they actually the composite had Lynn with the best numbers altogether of the 3 big guys, the 1, 2, 3. I mean, those are all terrific pitchers. Then of course a huge drop off when you got to Cease and then Kopech. But the suggestion in that piece was, well, they need another starting pitcher. They need another starting pitcher. Well, there are a lot of starting pitchers still out there. Obviously, the Trevor Bauer is not coming to Chicago, but there are a number of decent ones. And an interesting one to me, and it's only interesting on how he does.
Well, hold on. Let's hold there. Let's take a quick break and come back and talk about the starting pitching market. And I believe you have a little update on Rosario as well.
Yes.
And I'm sure you want to talk about backup catchers.
Oh, my favorite topic.
That's your thing. All right, so we will be right back. All right, cool. So when we went to that break, we were going to talk about who is left in the starting pitching market. It is fairly bleak. We're not going to get Trevor Bauer. I'm almost certain of that. But what do you got?
There are a lot of guys who are going to be number 4 or number 5 for somebody, and we're only looking for a number 4 or number 5. So there are fits in there. One that's interesting because he's going to throw, I think this week sometime, he's going to throw a demo who could be something is Jake Arrieta.
Oh, no thanks. Nope, hard pass.
That's a guy who can actually pitch. Now, he could actually pitch, I should say, in the past tense.
Yeah, maybe he can pitch. I don't know. Chris Bryant.
I don't think you do anything till you watch him pitch.
No interest. I'd rather just not have him. I know that's ridiculous, but he was one of my least favorite Cubs during that World Series run. He's so annoying. He's again, we shouldn't bring politics into this, but he's a right-wing nut, and I just have no interest in bringing him into the clubhouse.
We got a manager in that category. He needs to talk to somebody.
I don't want him to be able to talk to anybody. I want him to sit alone on his end of the dugout while Timmy and Eloy and Yon and Jose party on the other end. That's what I want. That's my goal. I don't want Arrieta. Thanks for bringing him up. He probably wasn't expected to come up in conversation on our podcast. So you're welcome, Jake. But this will be the last time. Moving on.
Bleacher Report did a little thing on Tuesday where they said, well, here's what one player that each team ought to get by spring training. And the player that they named for the White Sox was a guy I've brought up several times. I wish they'd gotten instead of Adam Eaton. Guy dumped by Minnesota. I don't know why. Maybe there's just some big conflict there. Is Eddie Rosario. Not a great defender, but if he plays left field, a pretty decent defender, certainly far better than Eloy, and much less likely to hurt himself or anybody else. And um, guy, left-handed hitter, which we
You
have a real
realize
need
if
for
they
left-handed
hadn't
hitter.
if they hadn't extended the netting at the field, Eloy would be dead.
Um,
I think for 4 consecutive games he flew into the netting somehow.
well, maybe he knew it was there, like a guy on the flying
maybe.
trapeze.
Yeah, I'm actually I think Rosario, one, he would be very cheap. So to bring in a left-handed bat, I think is a great idea, especially at the price point you'll have him. And it gives you the opportunity of making it a little easier to convince Eloy to DH. I would pick up Rosario. I actually think that's a good pickup. I agreed with you back in the day when you floated this months ago, and I like that pickup a lot. I think it makes a lot of sense, especially for the price. I like it even more if it means we are then going to spend money on another pitcher, or even someone like Nelson Cruz. Just would be kind of a cool guy to have, not destroying us but helping us. He turns 100 this year. Happy birthday, Nelson. And I think he would be an asset as well. But I do like your Rosario idea.
And I think Eloy at least could play left field against left-handed pitching,
Sure.
which we're not going to face a lot. I don't think teams, particularly early in the season, will switch the rotations around in order to avoid throwing lefties to the Sox. It may happen in September if there's any contention. But in May and June, April, May, June, they're going to throw what they throw, because otherwise it just messes them up too much.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, if you've got 2 lefties in your starting 5, you can't just not throw them for a whole series or 2 series in a row.
They'll keep the rotation just the way the rotation is, and be ready to take the guy out in the 3rd inning if they have to, because they may have to.
Yeah.
Where guys, I don't think they're going to want to defeat it against lefties again, but they're going to crush lefties again.
Yeah,
I shocking if they don't crush lefties.
They absolutely will crush lefties again. There's no doubt about that. I have full confidence in that. And whatever we can do to get Eloy, out of left field and in the DH spot, whatever we can do to convince them. Now, of course, if we get Nelson Cruz, that all goes to hell.
Yeah, that changes. Yeah, the Rosario's
Nelson Cruz becomes the DH and Rosario's gone, and we have a stinky left fielder.
Speaking of that, there was somebody, what may have been the Athletic, that did a study on Eloy's defensive problems, which as we all know are huge. I mean, it's not exactly news, but the stats showed he is actually quick to the ball. His speed getting to the ball once he starts is better than average. That's not surprising, because he's not slow. He's a pretty fast guy. Somewhat more surprising, his direction is good. He takes a good path to the ball. Where he falls down and is, other than, I don't like to use the word fall down with Eloy, because no,
he does fall down.
That happens. Where he fails is getting started. He does not make the read.
Well, whenever you're growing up, you're playing high school baseball and you're playing in the outfield. Coach always says the least important step is the first one. So nope, they have never said that. It's absolutely.
I was a coach for a long time, but I don't remember ever saying to anybody.
It is the opposite of that.
Any direction you want on that first step.
In fact, most coaches will tell you that's the far and away most important step you make. So it is hugely problematic. It could have, he might just not be seeing the ball off the bat very well. And I don't know if that's an eyesight thing, or if he just still has not adjusted to how to move the second contact is made. But it's not surprising to me at all that he has a bad first step. But that first step is crucial. And if you're in left field, especially when those balls are slicing towards the line, if your first step is forward and to the left instead of back and to your right, you're in a world of hurt. And that is how you end up in the net for 4 consecutive games.
And it's not just vision, and I don't read much about this, but just from coaching and being around players a lot, I know sound, well, even from when I played, sound is very important. If you read the sound right, it can kind of tell you, that's a line shot or that's a fly ball. I mean, even if you're watching on TV and they've got a mic down around there, when you hear it, you go, oh, that's out of the park, or
Yeah.
well, that's a shot.
Well, and also a huge part of it is knowing where the ball might go based on where Grandal is setting up. If someone hits a fly ball to you and Grandal is set up on the outside corner, if it's a right-handed batter, chances are it's not going to be hit really
Chances are
hard.
it's a ground ball to shortstop.
Yeah, or if they do get it in the air, it's going to be a bit more routine. And if Grandal sets up inside and the ball pops off the bat, that you better start heading towards that line and very quickly. So it's also possible that he just is not quite proficient yet at reading where the ball is likely going to go. I mean, I'm sure he has a lot of people trying to teach him and tell him that. But I don't know. He actually seems like he made a little progress, and I'm hoping that he did, so that he's not a liability when he's out there. Because, even if he's just a couple ticks better, that's going to be a big difference for our outfield overall. And keep in mind, you really only need him to play from his starting position to the line, because Luis Robert can catch everything else. I mean, Eloy should just have a rule that says your first step is always back and to the right. Because the ball is to your left, just don't even go. Just let Luis take it.
If it's ahead of you, Tim will take care of it.
Yeah, and if it's ahead of you, Tim will take care of it. Or Moncada, if it's that far down the line, just let Yon take it. But yeah, so we'll see. But I mean, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and think that he's going to come back a little stronger. He is very young still.
He is. But he's always played the outfield, which is the worrisome part. It's not like he moved back there from someplace and has to learn it. He's played it at a high level. He played it, Cuban ball at a high level.
It's true, but there's still a big difference between reading the ball off the bat of like Nelson Cruz and the ball off the bat of.
He doesn't have to read the ball off the bat of Nelson Cruz when Nelson Cruz is batting against us. All he has to do is turn around and see what row it went into.
Yeah, so that's a good point. What else you got?
Well, you brought up Yasmani Grandal, which is nice and high and all that kind of stuff. But that does bring up the fact that we have at the moment one catcher, and you really need two. Another one went off the boards this week, just a couple of days ago. Wilson Ramos is gone. So the ones that are left, Yadier Molina is not going to back up for anybody. So that's off the boards. So the other catcher left, Alex Avila, who we've had and who he's a little older than I am. Man takes a walk nicely. But
I'm gonna stop you right there, and once again, just let you know that Zach Collins is gonna be the backup catcher.
I know, but I want to go through this just for fun. Then there's Robinson Chirino, Jeff Mathis. Was at $5 million last year, so that might be high. Matt Wieters is very good defensively. Doesn't hit much of anything, but it has been at least historically strong defensively. I don't think he had a great 2020. And of course, your friend and mine, Mr. Tyler Flowers, is also still available, and I think probably will be when the season's. But I think all these guys, maybe not Avila because he's really old, but the rest of them, I think somebody will pick them up because there's always a need for backup catchers. But there were maybe 20 of these guys at the start, some of them pretty good, and that went cheaply.
Yeah.
$2 million contracts, minor league contracts. And I don't understand letting Zach Collins out there with a pitching staff this young. Even with the addition of Lance Lynn, it's a very young pitching staff, overwhelmingly. You've got all those young guys, and I mean, you let out a guy.
To be fair, though, and I am not a Zach Collins guy, you know this, but to be fair, he has not had a fair shake at all in Major League Baseball. He is still only around 130 something at bats for his entire Major League career.
That's true.
And so,
and it's only 120 strikeouts, so it's fair.
So it's a little early to write him off. The defense is more of a concern for me, is having him back there calling games for young pitchers. But he is going to be working under Yasmani Grandal, who is one of the better catchers in all of baseball. And I think there's a chance, some room to grow there. You would think he would have grown under Grandal and McCann. He did not really, but this could be his first chance at getting a real shake in a full season. So I'm going to hold out hope. I think, we've got him. We might as well. I'd rather we spend that money improving the rest of the lineup. But I do think, unfortunately for you, Zach Collins is a lock.
The Tyler Flowers of 2021.
But he's left-handed. That's pretty cool. Before we go, I just want to say about one of our recent acquisitions, Liam Hendricks. I read today that he and his wife are personally buying lunch for first responders and frontline workers in Bridgeport, which I think is really cool and a great sign.
Everything seems to point that Hendricks is a class act.
Yeah.
We kind of needed to pick up a class act this winter because we haven't done a lot of that. Nothing against Lance Lynn. I'm sure he's classy too. But they needed some balance for a couple of the other things. But yeah. I've got a Hendricks quote that I use for the Crypto Soxery this week, which I'll have the answer to on Friday. And it shows that he's a kind of modest, self-effacing guy. He knows him to be almost an AJ Brzezinski on the field, but off the field, a decent guy who can make fun of himself and do the kinds of things you really like to see in your heroes.
He seems, he really just kind of seems like
that Australian guy.
Like just a regular Australian dude who's playing Major League Baseball. But everything he's been doing since joining the Sox on social media or community outreach has been really promising. And when you sign a guy to a 5-year deal like that we were all skeptical about, or four-year deal, it's cool to see that he has sort of embraced his place in Chicago already. I'm very high on him now. It's like you said, it almost appears Brzezinski, and when you're playing against him, you're like, man, this guy's a jerk. He must be just the worst guy in real life. And then you get him on your team and you're like, actually, I love him. I love having him. So I'm super pumped about Hendricks and what he's been doing so far. You got anything else before we sign off?
No, I did look at the odds makers, the Las Vegas stuff. The Sox are now, with the total collapse of Cleveland and the Twins doing damn little. They did a little bit this week, and I even forget what it was, but they haven't done much. Are now actually literally odds-on favorites, 10 to 11. $11 will get you 10.
Great, what a deal.
Yeah, so it's not a big betting thing, but that shows a lot of faith. And of course, they and the Yankees are far and away the favorites between them to win the American League pennant. Neither one's given much of a chance against the National League, but that's the way it goes.
Well, yeah, the Padres and the Dodgers are something fierce. The Padres are just unbelievable. If Clevenger didn't have to have Tommy John, they would be the far and away favorites of this upcoming season. But I will say, and they've made some more moves recently. The Blue Jays should not be slept on.
Yes, absolutely.
The Blue Jays have had sort of the best offseason, in my opinion. And the Yankees are going to be really, really good, but I think the Blue Jays are going to be right behind them. And the White Sox have not maneuvered as well as the Blue Jays in the offseason. I would actually put the White Sox at third in the hierarchy of the American League right now.
I think what will help is being in the pitiful division we are and playing at the schedule such that we play the National League Central again, which is even more pitiful. Nobody wants to win over there. Nobody even cares about winning.
No one's even trying. The division's up for grabs. No one cares.
Should end up, regardless of whether they're really the best team or not in the league, they should end up with the best record because again, when they do that strength of schedule, White Sox are going to be the weakest schedule. They were the weakest schedule this past year. The weakest schedule anybody ever heard of.
They are essentially playing a non-conference Power 5 football schedule to open the season. More so like the schedules used to be. Now they play one good team, but we're going to be the equivalent of Ohio State playing Mississippi Valley Technical State Polytech University College.
Which is where Jerry Rice went, incidentally, so don't scoff at it.
Well, he went to a real school. I believe the one I named was his with a twist. But yeah, it should be a year of raking up some runs for this offense, and we'll see what happens. But I think that's all the time we have for today. Any final words?
Goodbye.
All
Stay
right.
safe.
That's going to be it for this week. We will see you next time on Sharing Socks.